imagine a world without music. Think about that for a moment. Could we live without music? Could you live without music? For humans to survive, we need food, air, water, and shelter. Of course, we can't forget about sleep and clothes. We do want to look snazzy and always be well rested. So, we don't need music to survive, but would we be whole without it? Music is pretty much everywhere. It's ubiquitous. It's all around us all the time. When you walk into H-E-B, you might hear music. If you go to Starbucks, there might be music playing outside in the patio area. When you go out and eat dinner at a restaurant, sometimes there is light music playing in the background over the speakers, albeit ever so distant in some places. There are also restaurants that have live music. Wow! Isn't that awesome? When we watch movies, sitcoms, and commercials, there is music. When we drive in our cars, we are listening to music, podcasts, news, etc. If the movie Jaws did not have the music of John Williams, would it be as compelling, convincing, or dare I say, as scary? I suppose for anyone that is maybe afraid of sharks, the music pushes it over the top. So what about the Harry Potter movies without the music? Or, for that matter, insert your own favorite movie or show and imagine for a moment there is no music. I think you get the idea. Music plays a huge role in everyday life. Some people work with music in the background, students will listen to music while they are studying, and our surgeons might very well be listening to music as they operate to calm the nerves, or simply just to focus on the task at hand. So, how can we define music? This is a big undertaking, but we could say that music expresses what words cannot. And once we learn to truly listen, that's where the magic happens. So where do we go from here? Well, let's talk about the 4 steps to becoming a good listener. A good listener, a great listener, an awesome listener. Number 1, you want to learn how music works. Number 2, you want to improve your musical memory. Number 3, focus solely on the music. And number 4, practice. Let's go through them a little bit. To learn how music works, you want to learn about the elements of music. That is melody, harmony, rhythm, dynamics, texture, form, instruments, and vocals. If we understand how to recognize the elements in the music we listen to, there just might be much more appreciation for varied genres and styles. Number 2, improve your musical memory. The idea here is to pay more attention to the music around you and events that happen in your life. An example, it's around 1993 or maybe 1994, and I'm working at McDonald's in North Richland Hills on Roof Snow Drive. A blue Mustang comes up to the drive-thru, and I say, "Welcome to McDonald's. Can I take your order?" I complete the order. The car drives around. There are 2 people in the vehicle, and after paying for their order, they park their car, and they come inside to chat with me a little bit more once the drive-thru line calms down. And the cool thing is, I remember the song that was playing, Linger by the Cranberries. I recall both of their names perfectly to this day, and the phone number I received is still memorized. We did get to hang out later, and it was a blast. The ultimate point here is that musical memory and how our brains can connect life events to songs that are playing around us is truly remarkable. Number 3, focus solely on the music. Many of us listen to music passively. That is, music while doing homework, dishes, driving, and other tasks, etc. Now, that's okay. It's all good. The challenge is to listen to music actively without any other distractions. Now, that doesn't mean you cannot daydream, draw, or doodle. That could be part of the process or journey. If you do daydream, draw, or doodle, or write your thoughts on the music as you listen, this can bring you closer to the musical journey or story of the composition. However, when you truly focus on the music, our sole purpose is to concentrate on that active listening session. Try to listen to the music and figure out what's going on with the elements and/or what is the story that you get from the music, whether it be orchestral, opera, ballet, R&B, rock and roll, heavy metal, rap, hip-hop, country, EDM, pop, K-pop, jazz, wow, and so much more. Oh my gosh. Look, there's no right or wrong way to listen or play music. The most important idea here is to improve your musical focus and attention. And remember, whether you like the music or not is irrelevant. Sometimes we learn more from the things we do not like, and you might be surprised that it grows on you. Number 4, practice. While Malcolm Gladwell popularized the 10,000-hour rule years ago in the book Outliers, The Story of Success, there are more things of note on one's journey to greatness. Gladwell based his research on a 1993 paper that was written by Anders Ericsson, a professor of psychology at Florida State University who is internationally recognized as a researcher in the psychological nature of expertise and human performance. And this paper was done with his colleagues that conducted studies in which they concluded that expert violinists derived their talent not from innate abilities, but rather from large amounts of deliberate practice, amounting to 10,000 hours over a decade or more. In his book Peak, Secrets from the New Science of Expertise, written with Robert Poole, Professor Ericsson condenses 3 decades of research into one incredible book. This book he covers chess, violin, memory mavens, star athletes, and more. The big takeaway from this book is that if you want to be great or a master at anything, it's not the number of hours. It's the deliberate practice with a professional coach, instructor, or teacher where you are working on very specific tasks to improve your performance. Some notes on purposeful practice. Teachers must provide activities that will help improve student performance. Keep a daily diary and/or journal or some kind of notes on how you spend your day and practice time. That is, sleeping, eating, working, class, studying, practicing alone, practicing with others, performing, and so on. Feedback and modification of efforts to that feedback, very important. Much of this feedback comes from the teacher or coach in the beginning. In time, self-monitoring will be key to your own feedback as to spot mistakes and adjust accordingly. Mental representations, i.e. self-monitoring, make it possible to know how one is doing, both in practice and in performance. They show the right way to do something and let you know when things are wrong so that you can correct them. Focused practice is imperative, no distractions. Well-defined specific goals are crucial. Do not just repeat things over and over. Once you get it right, you must continue the practice to maintain that awesomeness. And goals will be meaningless and unattainable if there are not systems set in place to achieve said goals. So, you want to put a bunch of baby steps together to reach a longer-term goal. You also want to push yourself beyond your comfort zone. Improvement is hard, and you may not always enjoy the work. So, don't try harder, try differently. The message here on practice can be applied to many things. If you want to get better at something, the right kind of practice will help you get there. To become a good or a great or awesome listener, remember, learn, improve, focus, and practice. Let's take a look at the elements of music one by one, along with some musical examples. A melody is a series of notes forming a distinct recognizable unit. We could simplify that and say melody, it's the tune. Now, saying it's the tune without context and details may not be enough for complete understanding. It's important to dig into this as we move forward and talk about specific songs. So if you take a listen to a song like Patience by Guns N' Roses, what do you hear in the very beginning? Well, you might hear something really cool. Maybe hear some whistling in there. What's going on? In Symphony No. 9, Movement 2, the New World Symphony, this is by Dvorak. As soon as you hear the main melody on the English horn, what pops in your mind? Whether or not you know the name of the instrument or are familiar with the composition, or maybe you are new to orchestral music, the melody in this music is saying something. I want to challenge you to look at music from all walks of life in a variety of genres, styles, and forms, and work to identify the elements in the music and/or the story behind the music. Our next element, harmony. Harmony results when multiple pitches sound simultaneously. We have chords like dyads, triads, seventh chords, flat seven chords. You could simply take, hey, what's a dyad? We can go CE for a dyad. We can go CEG for a triad. We can go CEGB for a seventh chord or CEGB flat. This is just super, super basic. These harmony, or what we're talking about chords here, they support and enrich the melody. They add depth, richness, and so much more. If you listen to a song like Coming Home, Skylar Grey, her real name is Holly Brooke Hafferman. She writes Coming Home, originally writing this for T.I. as he was getting out of prison. And Diddy, or as some of you know him, Sean Puffy Combs or P. Diddy, he heard it and wanted the song. Now, Skylar had written Castle Walls for Diddy, and that actually ended up on T.I.'s album. Puff Daddy and T.I. switched songs. They switched. Man, wow, how cool is that? For Diddy, the song Coming Home was for anyone going through struggles or obstacles in life and trying to find their way back home. You can check out the different versions of this song, Skylar Grey, voice and piano, or you can look at Coming Home with Skylar Grey, Diddy, Dirty Money, which is on the Last Train to Paris album. Now, the version of Coming Home with Diddy and his group Dirty Money, this is written by J. Cole, Jay-Z, Alex the Kid, and Skylar Grey, where you have Alex the Kid and Jay-Z, they handled the production. So what's something really contrasting to that by maybe a few hundred years? How about a little night music by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart? If you listen to that, what do you hear? What are you thinking? What pops in your mind? What are the instruments? What catches your attention? Have you heard it before? And if so, where have you heard it? So some things to think about there. We know Mozart today as, he's the face of child prodigy, but why? Well, there are 4 things that contribute to Mozart's child prodigy. The parent lottery, amazing family and upbringing. Eidetic memory, photographic memory. Perfect pitch. He could listen to anything and play it back perfectly and even write it down. And he's taken tours in his childhood, probably before his feet could even touch the ground of the keyboard at the time, the harpsichord. So if you listen to Mozart's Serenade for Strings, night music, and pay attention to the rocket theme and how space is used between the notes, some might say that the music is the space between the notes. The beautiful melody and harmony in this piece can be for many quite calming. The rocket theme and its spatial rhythm give it supersonic energy. What's our next element? The cool one, of course, rhythm. Rhythm, the organization of time in music. For many of us, when you talk about a cool beat in a song, what you probably mean is, that's a cool rhythm. Most of us say, that's a cool beat, man, or that's a cool beat or something to that effect. Now, really, a beat is a steady or even pulse. The rhythm is that coolness that many of us are referring to. The most practical way to learn about rhythm is to listen to some music and try to figure out, well, what's going on? If you listen to Rap God by Eminem, you'll notice some fast-moving action in there. And this is an example of fast 16th notes, or you could say maybe slow 32nd notes. Either way, it's moving. Now, I wish I could sing it, but what I can probably do is, well, I actually can. I do know the words. I would skip a few of the EQ words, but I do know it. However, what I can show you that's captivating is just, it's really interesting to hear that And I'm just like, wow, just amazed at that awesomeness in Rap God by Eminem. Now, maybe that's not the fastest, but it's certainly pretty slamming. It's pretty fire. So what's contrasting to that in terms of rhythm? Well, how about the Black Page #1 by Frank Zappa? You get some very different usage of rhythm and flow. There's a lot of density in those rhythms and some bracketed rhythms that might boggle your mind. I remember playing this music with Terry Bozzio on drum set at the University of Texas at Arlington many years ago. Terry was Frank Zappa's drummer and a guest artist for the UT Arlington Percussion Ensemble. This is a while ago, many moons or years ago. We played a few of Mr. Bozzio's compositions and then threw down the Black Page #1 with him. We joined him on a few marimbas and a xylophone, and it was incredible. That's one amazing experience that you never forget, and I will certainly never forget the opportunity to play marimba with Terry Bozzio on the Black Page #1. So that's a great example of something that's very, very different. So what about the mystery behind syncopation? What's that all about? Syncopation is displacement of the beat. It might sound funky, cool, different, or more, but that's kind of our opinion. You could insert your descriptor, adjective, or your own way to talk about syncopation. What does all this mean? Well, to understand the word, really, syncopation, you got to take a listen to a song like Maple Leaf Rag by Scott Joplin. A few minutes with this composition, and you will be well on your way. So I could try to play a little bit for you. Let's see how it goes. If I just kind of get it rolling here for what the syncopation is, then you get this. Well, I did my best there. Hopefully that was nice and grooving. That's that funkiness, that in between the beats, that funness, that coolness. So what would be maybe contrasting to something like that? Well, maybe a parallel possibly, but if we look at the most famous sampled drum beat in like the history of music, arguably, probably the Amen break. And this comes from the song Amen Brother by the Winstons. The drummer in the group who played this drum beat and well-known groovy rhythm was Gregory Coleman. Check out the original song, but it's also been sampled way more times than I can even mention in today's video. But like Straight Outta Compton by N.W.A, I Desire by Salt and Peppa, the Futurama theme song, Eyeless, Slipknot, Tundra, Square Pusher, and the list goes on and on and on. If we keep going with rhythmic examples in terms of songs, it would be, contrasting, parallel, or just giving different varieties of how rhythm is used throughout time. We can look at something. Let's take a look at like another one of our really legendary drummers, John Bonham. He's playing one of our most famous drum beats in history on When the Levee Breaks with Led Zeppelin. Now, this is one of those drum beats or drum rhythms that is a rite of passage for all drummers, regardless of your genre or style of music. So if I try to sing it for you, let's see. Let's give this a whirl here. Here, if I can talk. Dum dum chat kum 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 chat dum dum cat kum 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 cat dum cat kum 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 chat. Now, I think he starts off the song with a double, but whether you learn dum dum cat kum kum chat or dum cat kum kum chat, he basically varies that through whether it's going to be a double on the bass or a single, but it's whether it's the School of Rock or maybe you're at Berkeley or University of North Texas or STC, South Texas College, or you name the institution, no matter where you are, this beat comes up, all over the place. So you could be a young student, young kid, really age is just a number. At any age, just jumping into the drums and this beat really or rhythm is probably going to come up. Okay, so in music, we talk about the loudness or softness of sound, and we refer to this as dynamics. And dynamics is one of our main elements. So you could also think of this as volume, the dial on a radio or a TV remote when you turn things up or down. But in music, there's nuance with dynamics, so we want to be careful not to oversimplify, but to make sure we understand the basics of dynamics. We have levels through the dynamic spectrum. We have crescendos, which gradually get louder over time. Decrescendos, which gradually get softer over time. The dynamic spectrum includes a range from soft, medium/moderate, and loud. We label the dynamics in music with abbreviations, and a lot of our key musical terms are in Italian, so I'll translate those as we go. Here's the dynamic spectrum. We have 3 Ps, 2 Ps, 1 P, MP, MF, F, 2 Fs, and 3 Fs. Wow, it's pretty quick, right? So if I have 3 Ps, or a triple piano, it's very, very soft. 2 Ps, pianissimo, very soft. You could also say, double piano. 1 P is soft. MP, we can say mezzo piano, somewhat soft. MF, we can say mezzo forte, somewhat loud, medium loud, moderate loud, something like that. F, we can say forte, loud, 2 Fs. Fortissimo, very loud. You can say, double forte. If it's 3 Fs, you can say, triple forte, very, very loud. But that's the basics of the dynamic spectrum. So if you listen to the song What I've Done by Linkin Park, you will notice the level jump in dynamics after the piano and drum intro. Listen for that guitar kick and what happens after. It's very cool and taps into the emotional connection from the listener. Maybe you haven't noticed that before. Check it out. This happens in all kinds of music, all over the place, and it's been going on for hundreds of years. Now, what's in contrast? This is most certainly in contrast to something like Beethoven's Symphony 5, Movement 1. This starts big and loud and aggressive, then it drops to a soft dynamic, and it builds back up again to a full house dynamic with lots of energy. And Beethoven uses this 4-note motive throughout in a similar fashion. The music has its ups, downs, drops, and builds. His use of the horns and timpani will hopefully catch your attention. Now, there's certainly many more points of instrumental interest, not just horns and timpani. And this instrumental interest adds so much musical beauty and awesomeness in his composition, Mr. Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. I want to challenge you to delve into that. I will revisit Beethoven's Fifth Symphony in more detail on upcoming videos. For now, our goal for this composition is to listen to the music actively and pay attention to the use of varied dynamics. Then, try to figure out the instruments playing and the sentiment that connects with the chosen dynamic.
And that's a wrap for today. I'm Professor Ron. Enjoy the music, and I'll see you in the next one.